Yes, sorry, had technical difficulties. So like I was saying, Showtime put a shout out to him. He called time on his illustrious career. He finished his career with 31 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw. Shout out to also Terence Crawford. I forgot to mention he's now 38-0, 29 KOs. That's his record. Damn. Wow. But yeah, credit to Shawn Porter. Credit in and out the ring. He's going to be a top announcer. I love his podcast, the Portway podcast. Boxing fans out there, make sure you watch that podcast if you haven't heard of it. It is an elite podcast. He gave him a great account of himself in the ring in the match. Boxed really well as I've ever seen him, especially the first 8-9 rounds. Like I said, I had him winning before the 10th. But eventually, the mistakes he makes took its toll. The lack disparity in boxing skills. And to be honest, if Shawn Porter had punching power, he would have been right up there with those guys. Because his punching powers would have erased some of the mistakes he had. Like real punching power where he could knock guys out or knock them down with one punch. He didn't really have punching power like that. Which is strange because, he shrinks himself down from 160. He's big at the weight. But yeah, his lack of apparent conditioning showed. Hence why his dad was quick to call the fight after the second knockdown. He was getting caught too cleanly. The body shots, that's what we say, invest in the body. Oh, if and when I do boxing training, I want to make sure I'm an elite body puncher. Or I'm going to commit to the body punches. Because I know most of you guys ain't fit enough. And if I'm going to hit you in the body, you're going to feel it. Gosh. Even if I don't even have power like that, just like quick and bam in the body, just uppercuts, work the body, get them, really work. I mean, shit. But yeah, more detail on the Crawford and the Porter fight, or the Crawford Porter fight rather, in my fight recap. Hopefully, should be uploading by the end of the week. So yeah, man, it's your boy. But yeah, still going on from boxing, we go to football. Go from America, Mandalay Bay, Vegas. We go to Manchester, Old Trafford. Ole Gunnar Solskjær. Ole is no longer at the wheel. Y'all won. The Ole out contingent, y'all won. 4-1 loss to Watford was the final nail in his coffin. 4-1 to Watford, they're like bottom of the league. Is terrible. But in the end, he was in over his head. That's the main point. As he didn't have the credentials to do the job to begin with. He didn't have the talent as a manager at that level, and it showed. And let's be real about, as much as he's a nice guy, a great guy, this is what happens when people like you. It's not about who you know, it's not about what you know, about who you know. If people like you and you're a likable guy, you can go very far. That's what Ole Gunnar Solskjær did. He is a likable character. It's so hard to not like the guy on a personal level. He just is. Everyone that's been with him, around him, says he's a great person. I haven't heard anyone to say a bad thing about him on a personal level. Managerial level, that's totally different. But yeah, what? He wasn't an elite player like that. Yes, he's got a lot of trophies. He's got quite a few goals. So he's a good goal scorer, poacher. I'll give him that. But at the end of the day, for the most part, he was a super sub for United. And elite players, they ain't super subs. They have a role to play, which is very important. He scored, I believe, the winner against Munich in 1999. Last few minutes, last kick of the game to win the Champions League for United. I believe it was the winner of the first goal. I believe it was the winner. But yeah, that's some heritage for you right there. Not to toot my own horn. But flipping, he wasn't an elite player. At Cardiff, he was relegated. His best time as manager is Mulder in the Norwegian League. Norwegian League, like I said with the guys Canada was finding the Caleb Plants, the Bill Jones, the Callum Smiths, benefits. You can't go from 1 to 10 and expect to make that gap. The only people that go from 1 to 10 are still proved to be great are the greatest of all time. Like Pep Guardiola. He went from Barca youth team, B team rather, essentially youth team, to the first team. 1 to 10. But he was an elite player. And he, Jonas, I think he worked with, or worked under Sir Alex. So he probably did get a solid schooling. But Guardiola was there with one of the greatest minds in football, arguably the greatest man in football, Johan Cruyff. And he done his work. He done his due diligence. You can't go from 1 to 10. I'm sorry. But yeah, Carrick's now in charge. We'll see how he does. Ole leaves trophyless. Well, no major trophies. He might nick the Community Shield, correct me if I'm wrong. But here's his overall stats with United as the manager. 968 days, 168 matches, 92 wins, 35 draws, 41 losses. That is a win percentage of 54.76, which is not a bad win percentage, but it's about who and when you beat teams. That's the main thing. And that's what really was the sticking point with Ole Gunnar Solskjær. But on the bright side, he's said to have amassed 7 million in termination fees, so shout out to Ole Gunnar Solskjær. Finally, another managerial sacking, but in the Barcelona sphere. That is Luke Walton, fired from the Kings. He spent over 2.5 years in charge there. He had a record of 6-11 in the last this season, to be fair. So far, he's 12th in the West. He lost his last 7 to 8 games of his run, and the only wins really came up against teams like the Spurs, OKC, Timberwolves, teams that are between 10 to 15, not really playoff teams like that. And associate head coach, who also coached the Pelicans last season, Alvin Gentry, is set to take over in the interim period. Overall, Luke Walton's record is 68-93. So that is a win percentage of 42.23. Not really good enough. Not cutting it. And he's their 11th coach since they were last in the playoff picture with Rick Adelman, I believe, in 2005. But most importantly, Luke Walton, you're the Lonzo killer. You're killing my boy. Look at my boy Lonzo thriving. Look at him. He's shooting over 40% from the 3-point. Last time I checked, it was 45%. Last time I checked, he had Chicago Bulls #1 in turnovers, meaning they give the least turnovers in the league, an elite point guard. I could take it back with the Lakers right now. That guy plays elite defense. He might be the best defensive guy, along with him and Drew Holiday. The reason I say Drew Holiday, because Drew Holiday's done on the biggest of stages. But them two are the best guards defensively. I mean, Lonzo better get defensive first team. He better get defensive first team. But him and Caruso, swarming defense. Big guards. Big guards. But yeah, I mean, LeVar Ball was right. Triple B's, my guy. I mean, LeVar Ball has essentially been vindicated. Remember, he said he was vindicated and exonerated because people were trying to say, he can't talk like that about Lonzo's coach. But yeah, he said, just because your dad, Bill Walton, was an all-time great player, one of the greatest players ever, probably a top 20, top 30 player, doesn't mean you can coach. And that's what I'm going to leave you guys with today. So make sure you like and subscribe. Follow us on all socials, be it Instagram, the Twitter. Links are in the bios, up and down. Up for Instagram, down below for YouTube. Make sure you follow us. So make sure you listen audibly, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It's your boy TMG Mello. And I'm out.